Hey everybody, I decided I would make myself some new friends today. So I'm starting with some shaggy hair. I'm working top down, which is a little bit different than I normally do from drawing people. And some hair and eyebrows, some nice big eyes, the implications of a nose, and the outline of the lips. Fill in some really big eyes and a little bit of shading or outlining. Draw on the cheeks and the chin and a shirt. Now I'm just going over some and adding more hair, pushing a little bit harder and using the tip of my pencil. Now filling out the really dark eyes, leaving some white for highlights. Adding some creases and smile lines and details in the lips and shading with my finger. You could use a Q-tip or a napkin, but I like my finger. Now, when I go around my eyes and do the shading, the white makes it look like the nose is more defined now. A little bit more hair. Again, some shading on the cheeks. He's looking a little bit more 3D, and it looks like a boy now. A little bit more outline, some tiny little lashes. Now, I know he's a little wonky. I'm not going for a realism. He is made up from my imagination, and here I am coloring him in. He's going to be mostly pinks. So I'm using this side of my pencil and a light pink and going over where I think the highlights would be if he was sitting in front of me. Now you can't see too much because I'm going really lightly and I'm going to be layering different pinks and maybe a little bit of red as I work. I'm going right on top of the pencil that I smeared in. And that helps with the shadow. So I like that little bit of pink under the eye. I'm going to add a little more. Do the same thing on the other side. It's a darker pink than the one I started with. I'm just using a mix of different colored pencils that I already own. All different brands that just have different shades. Each brand of color pencil will have a different sort of pink or red to it that I can use. I'm still leaving some of the white for highlights. Going it over with another lighter color. And you can see I keep switching my colors, and I know I'm going really fast. This video was originally over an hour, but I'm giving you the highlights in a really sped up version. So you can see I'm going fast, but I'm going lightly. I'm not pushing really hard. I don't want to dent the paper with my color pencil or burnish it, because I still want to be able to layer colors and to blend them. And if you go really hard, it won't accept any more color. Now I'm using a much lighter, it's almost a white, but it's still a pink. And you don't immediately notice everything I do, but over time, as the layers build up, you can see more and more color and more details. You can see that his hair is making a little bit of shadow on his face. And I like the way he's looking. I'm going to have to come up with a good name for him. I haven't done that yet. Up, and there's Orange visiting. He got a little bored. He says, "I'm your friend. You don't need any new ones." Now I'm adding some more pink up here again. And layering. You can see him going a little bit slower here, because when I'm working in smaller spaces, I tend to work slower. I get back to the bigger piece and the larger part of his cheek, and again I'm working faster. The bigger areas are easier to work faster in. You have to be really slower and more careful with the smaller space. Anything with more detail needs more time. Here I'm adding some darker red. I was thinking I would make it really intensely pink, but as I started working, I decided to change my mind. And you can see that there's like a second line by the chin. I think I'm going to reduce that side of his face and turn that into part of his neck as well, because I think I like him better that way. You can always edit and change things as you work. There are really no mistakes. We turn all mistakes back into art as we go, especially when you're drawing from your imagination. Just layering and blending more colors, adding another red to this. And all my reds are more of a pink red or a cool red. No, not really an orange red. I'm keeping to those cool pinks and reds as I work. Hey, orange. And he's starting to look cool. I think there's more color in his forehead than on his cheeks, but the color doesn't have to be evenly applied. So I'm really liking the way he's coming out. I'm going over with some darker and colors here to add more depth. I'm using a little bit of red to outline right over the pencil. Giving an outline to his iris and a little bit to his lips. Giving some separate eyelashes, eyebrows, hairs to his hair and around his cheeks. Now this is where I'm going to start changing the shape of his face by coloring in the neck. And I went right over a little bit to make it a little bit smaller or more narrow at the chin. I decided to add some yellow. So I'm outlining his face and some of his lips in yellow and his eyes, and it's a little bit like he's glowing from within. I like that. He's really bright. It's a very happy portrait. Here I'm adding some red right over the pencil for his hair, because his hair is going to be a darker red. And it's sort of really chunky hair. I'm not going strand by strand. It just gives you the idea that there are separate pieces to his hair, so it's not quite a helmet, but it is not strand by strand hair. You could do that if you wanted to. I just decided not to. Going over his eyelashes again. A little bit more shading because I want that same red from his hair to be in different places of his face. I'm going to layer more pink. And as I layer, you can see the colors getting richer and darker, and there's more texture to it. Had I used one color and pushed hard in the beginning, that would be all there was to it. It would just be solid, and it would look a lot different. So here I'm thinking about where I'm going next, and I've decided I'm using markers. I'm using an Indian ink marker to go in and put some red in his hair. So you can see I'm about to speed this up because we don't need to see how slowly I'm applying the marker. I am going really slow because I want to stay inside my lines, and I'm not going to use the same marker for all the hair. So I'm going really quickly and I'm changing the colors so that there are highlights and lowlights in his hair. Regular hair is not one solid color. Even if it's brown, you have golden colors and darker browns. So I'm doing the same thing, but I'm just making his hair red. And I know it's not a real color that you would find in people's hair if they were born with it. But it's more fun. And when you make art, you can decide to do things that are unrealistic. Now here I'm adding a little bit of yellow on top, and then going back and I'm adding some marker under his eyes, because and it helps blend the color pencil a little bit. And you can see that I added some pink and some red, and I'm blending them. Indian ink markers blend as you work. And I'm not going to go over his whole face because I don't want to lose all my color pencil, but I'm just adding some in different places. So here I'm doing some more yellow, and I'm going right over. I'm going to make his whole shirt bright yellow. I'm using a broad tip marker. I think it's actually a Crayola marker. It puts down the color nicely and quickly. Again, I'm working in one direction. It's sort of a diagonal, so that I'm staying in my lines and that it looks neat. I don't want it to look scribbly. If you scribble with your markers or go in many directions, when the ink is dry, you'll be able to see it. I tested that pink and I decided I didn't like it, and I'm going back to a color pencil to add more color over the chin and cheeks. Now you can always test something on another paper, your colors and how they look together, if you're not quite sure before you work on your artwork. So it's nice to have a scrap of paper next to you to do that. Now I've used different pinks and yellows before, so in my head I know what they look like. If you're using colors that you haven't used together, you can always test them on a separate paper first. I'm going over his little tiny things, to add a little bit more color in different places. I think I'm just about done with him. To me, he looks thoughtful. Maybe, and it also looks like he might be looking out the window. So here I'm doing just some lines around him to give the background some information. I didn't want it to be so blank, but I didn't want to fill it in solid or make a setting or a scene. Maybe it's just his thoughts going out there. Well, I really hope you like my new friend. I think I like him. Oh, that's much better. That little bit of black outline there with the Sharpie defines his face and his shirt. And just added a little bit of detail. I don't know if that's my favorite thing I've added, but I'm going to leave it here. I hope you really like my video.